Welcome to the Friday News Dump for Saturday, August 24th, 2013. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford, and we're broadcasting to you tonight from Stockbridge, Vermont in the beautiful Green Mountains. President Obama is considering options today for a possible military strike on Syria in response to a nerve gas attack that killed hundreds of people. Syria is seeking to avert blame by saying its soldiers found chemical weapons in rebel tunnels. A senior UN official arrived in Damascus to seek access for inspectors to the site of Wednesday's attack. Opposition accounts say between 500 and well over 1,000 civilians were killed by gas fired by pro-government forces.
In the most authoritative account so far, the medical charity Medicine Without Frontiers says 3 hospitals near Damascus reported 355 deaths in the space of 3 hours out of about 3,600 admissions with nerve gas-type symptoms. The accounts and video footage of the victims, men, women, and children, have been heightened Western calls for a robust U.S.-led response after 2.5 years of international inaction on a conflict that has killed 100,000 people.
U.S. military and national security advisors met Obama at the White House today to consider options for a response, the day after Washington said it was realigning forces in the Mediterranean to give him the option of attacking Syria.
Japan on Wednesday upgraded the recent leak of radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear disaster site to level 3, a serious incident on the international nuclear event scale. The operator of the crippled nuclear plant said on Thursday that new spots of high radiation have been found near storage tanks holding highly contaminated water, raising fear of fresh leaks as the disaster goes from bad to really bad. The announcement came after Tokyo Electric Power Company said this week that contaminated water with dangerously high levels of radiation was leaking from one of the storage tanks.
A tsunami crashed into the Fukushima Daiichi power plant north of Tokyo in March 2011, causing fuel rod meltdowns at 3 reactors, radioactive contamination of air, sea, and food, and triggering the evacuation of 160,000 people. It is the world's worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl in 1986, and no one seems to know how to bring the crisis to an end.
U.S. Army Private Chelsea Manning, formerly known as Bradley Manning, was sentenced on Wednesday to 35 years in jail for providing classified material to WikiLeaks. Manning's leaks exposed a myriad of crimes the government tried to conceal with claims of national security. The 35-year term is the longest sentence ever imposed for the release of classified documents. Her trial was a cruel joke because her defense team was forbidden to even mention that the Military Code of Conduct and international law say that any soldier with knowledge of war crimes is legally and morally obligated to expose them. They were also barred from presenting any of the documents proving that U.S. forces committed war crimes and that the government covered them up. The prosecution was not required to prove that anything that Manning released in any way directly harmed the country or any forces currently deployed.
You may have noticed in the previous story that Greg referred to Army Private Bradley as Chelsea Manning. That's because Manning went on the Today Show Thursday and said he identifies as a female and wants to be known as Chelsea Manning. She's requested hormone sex reassignment therapy, but Army officials say they don't provide such therapy to prisoners.
Europe's second largest oil company, British Petroleum, better known as BP, is claiming that the EPA's temporary imposition of a ban on granting the company any more oil leases is punitive, arbitrary, capricious, and an abuse of the EPA's discretion. BP was responsible for an explosion on their offshore rig called Deepwater Horizon that killed 11 workers and gushed 1 million gallons of crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico, decimating fisheries all along the Gulf Coast.
Millions of gallons. Millions,
maybe even more.
Yes.
The company is seeking relief from the ban in federal court. Given their habitual negligence in maintaining safety standards at their installations, it is thought by many that BP would do better to invest the money spent on lawyers to contest this ruling on improving their policies and procedures. If BP has any further complaints about unfair treatment, perhaps they should call 1-800-WAH.
International Monetary Fund Managing Director Christine Lagarde said Wednesday that central banks in Europe, the United States, and Japan have no need to rush to exit the ultra-easy monetary policies they have put in place to spur growth. In remarks at the U.S. Federal Reserve's annual Jackson Hole Policy Symposium, she also said that central banks must work with each other to minimize spillover from any withdrawal of policy accommodation that could stifle world growth. Central bankers from around the world are attending the annual conference this weekend, hosted by the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank in the mountainous splendor of Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park.
In an all-out effort to combat the outrage and nearly unanimous public opposition to the appointment of Larry Summers as the new chairman of the Federal Reserve, the Goldman Sachs White House has resorted to employing some revisionist history to support his confirmation. Well, revisionist history is a very polite euphemism for more bald-faced lies. Now they're claiming that poor Larry was the lone voice in the wilderness back in 2000 trying to get someone to listen to his dire warnings about Wall Street's shenanigans. Come on, guys. We were born at night, but not last night. Just a few minutes' research proves that the White House is smearing lipstick on this pig to sell a whopper. Summers was actually leading the charge to thwart any efforts to rein in Wall Street's excesses, and in typical fashion, he was not quiet about it. Summers is Goldman Sachs' boy, so naturally, he's Obama's boy. They don't want Janet Yellen because she's not a team player. They fail to mention that the chairman of the Federal Reserve is not supposed to be anyone's team player. Oh, and Yellen was right when all of those clowns were dead wrong about everything. So there's that. A raging wildfire outside of Yosemite National Park has quadrupled in size and threatened 2,500 homes. California Governor Jerry Brown has declared a state of emergency. There are at least 50 uncontained wildfires throughout the western states.
In Egypt, dozens of Muslim Brotherhood supporters were killed in prison Sunday while attempting to escape police custody.
Or supposedly attempting.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's going on there.
6 people were injured on Sunday in a bomb explosion on a bus in the eastern Indian state of West Bengal. Why they were bombed, nobody seems to know.
At least 24 Egyptian policemen were killed in an attack Monday near Rafah in the Sinai Peninsula.
Russian police killed 9 suspected Islamist militants Tuesday in the North Caucasus region.
5 Taliban militants were killed Thursday in a bomb attack in South Waziristan, Pakistan.
14 people were killed by a suicide bomber on Wednesday in a military headquarters in western Iraq.
26 people were killed and 55 wounded yesterday by a suicide bomber in a park in northern Baghdad, Iraq.
5 civilians are wounded by mortar fire in the Congo city of Goma.
Authorities yesterday confirmed that 5 of the 13 bodies exhumed from a clandestine mass grave in at a rural ranch in Mexico are of the 12 people kidnapped at a bar in Mexico City last May. The mass kidnapping resonated across the country because Mexico City is widely considered a safe haven for much of the drug violence rampant in other parts of Mexico.
Explosions occurred yesterday outside mosques in the Lebanese city of Tripoli, and more than 50 people were reported killed in the explosions.
UN troops in the Democratic Republic of the Congo launched an offensive yesterday, shelling positions held by rebels near the eastern city of Goma.
Israeli warplanes launched an airstrike yesterday in response to rockets being fired into northern Israel.
And we're going to take a break right there. We're going to go to Gregory Crawford's weekly rant. Then we're going to come back with the second segment of our Friday News Dump. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford. See you in a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Greg Crawford with the Friday News Dump, brought to you by World News Trust. Republican attacks on the 78-year-old entitlement program called Social Security are, as is pretty much anything that comes out of a conservative's mouth, bald-faced lies, as they want to do with every other government-administered program that benefits the majority of Americans, It is their fervent desire to privatize it, which is to say that a very vocal minority in Congress want to abrogate the will of the people, whose name they so love to invoke when it suits their purposes. However, when it comes to actually doing something that benefits those same people, well, that's another story. All of a sudden, the people become takers, parasites, in the words of their bitch goddess of pathological selfishness, Ayn Rand. In typical fashion, the arguments they offer to justify this are, altogether now, bald-faced lies. The fact is that the weasels of Wall Street want to get their slimy paws on all that Social Security trust fund money so they can squander it to enrich themselves while they impoverish the rest of us. To achieve this, they call upon the politicians that they have bought and paid for through thinly veiled bribes euphemistically referred to as campaign contributions. But first, let's review a brief history of Social Security. The Social Security Act of 1935 was established in the depths of the Great Depression by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. It was all part of the New Deal, which was FDR's comprehensive plan to pull the nation out of the Depression by providing work for the millions of unemployed who were victims of the reckless gambling of investment bankers, real estate and commodities speculators, and con artists of every stripe that brought about the 1929 crash of the stock market. Sound familiar? Social Security is paid for by payroll taxes taken out of everyone's paycheck. These funds are deferred wages held in escrow by Social Security for people to draw upon when they retire. Everyone pays withholding on every dollar they earn. Unless, of course, they are among the wealthy elite who only pay withholding on the first $110,000 of their income. Whatever millions they may earn over and above that are not subject to the payroll tax. Sound fair to you? I didn't think so. That seething furnace of malice, retired Senator Alan Simpson called Social Security a cash cow with 300 million teats. Nice imagery there, Al. But that is, to extend his bovine reference, just so much bullshit. It utterly sucks. Okay, I'll stop. But Simpson is being disingenuous, to put it mildly. He thinks the Social Security Trust Fund is the government's money, not ours. Like all conservatives, he thinks in totalitarian terms, and he secretly loathes the very thought of true democracy. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be a Republican. He is either an ignorant old fool or a conniving liar, or most likely both. It is our money, Simpson, not the government's. And the government was never supposed to be a separate entity answerable to no one, as conservatives and liberals alike have come to envision it. It is, by law, a group of people elected to represent the interests of their friends and neighbors in their home states or congressional districts. They are not there to represent the interests of corporation or banksters intent on plundering our treasury for their own enrichment. In short, we are the government. We should not be afraid of the government. They should be afraid of us. Unless, of course, they're doing their jobs as they're supposed to do, then there's no problem. But then that's not the case now, is it? In 1983, Congress established a Social Security tax increase that was supposed to be set aside to cover the retirement of the baby boomer generation, of which I am a proud member. Set aside means the thieving rats at the top of the political food chain were supposed to keep their grimy paws off it. Yeah, right. The rapacious monsters entrusted with the protection of our retirement funds were so intent on robbing us blind that Congress had to pass the Budget Enforcement Act of 1990, which explicitly forbade the inclusion of Social Security trust fund monies in general budget calculations. Fat lot of good that did. Bush 41 and Slick Willie Clinton raided the trust fund, but Bush the Lesser went to afterburners when he drained it to pay for tax breaks for the rich. And then a war in Iraq that he started on totally false pretenses. Of course, he and others like him still walk free, while the people brave enough to expose their evil crimes rot in jail. Go figure. In 2004, a retired economics professor named Alan W. Smith, Ph.D., published a book entitled The Looting of Social Security. In it, he detailed how every penny of the Social Security Reserve Fund of $1.5 trillion has been stolen, to be replaced by those running our government with essentially worthless IOUs that no one had any intention of repaying. So if we, the people, were to demand in no uncertain terms that the government cease and desist dipping into our piggy bank, repay everything they've already purloined, and require the rich to pay their fair share of payroll tax, even if their income is derived from investments, why then Social Security would be perfectly solvent far into the future. But the banksters on Wall Street live by Charles Koch's infamous quote, "I just want my share, and that's all of it." And they mean it. So if we don't smarten up and expose their perfidy, we'll be left with nothing but the orange jumpsuits we wear as we trudge single file to our assigned workstations in the continent-sized prison the corporatists have planned for us. However, those corporatists control nearly every means of communicating that message, and that's a public service announcement they ain't about to make. But nearly means that their control is not absolute. It is possible to alert those intelligent enough to grasp the importance of what we're saying. We'll have to go up against the likes of Limbaugh, Coulter, and the rest of the vermin that try to shout down reason, but it's high time somebody stood up to them, don't you think?
And we're back. Great rant, Greg. I really love your rants.
Thank you very much. Chiribekete National Park in Colombia has been expanded from its previous 3 million acres to 7.4 million acres, becoming one of the largest protected zones in the Amazon. The Colombian government made the announcement on Sunday after Ecuador decided to open up Yasuni National Park to oil drilling after a 6-year initiative to protect the rainforest.
J.C. Penney Wednesday reported a notable decrease in third quarter income.
And the NASDAQ stock exchange shut down for 3 hours on Thursday due to a computer problem.
Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer said yesterday that he will retire within the next 12 months.
A train accident in India Monday killed at least 37 pilgrims and injured more than a dozen.
I want to take this moment to say that our camera operator, my lovely wife, Deborah Goodwin, is not with us this evening. She's down in New York City with our girls, having a blast and spending money, I think. Anyway, she'll be back next week, so we miss her camera skills and also her acerbic comments. Torrential rain and floods in northeast China, together with Typhoon Utor, triggered floods in southern China, leaving at least 91 people dead and 111 missing.
The 500th eruption this year of Mount Sakurajima in southern Japan on Monday covered the major city of Kagoshima in a cloud of ash.
A B-1B Lancer with the U.S. Air Force 28th Bomb Wing crashed near Brodus, Montana Monday during a routine training mission.
The Wakari White Island volcano in the Bay of Plenty off New Zealand's North Island erupted on Tuesday. They have been suffering a great deal of geologic disruption over the past year or so, and I sincerely hope that New Zealand continues to exist because it sounds like they want it to sink into the ocean. It's a terrible thing.
21 people were killed in a flash flood Wednesday in Qinghai Province, China.
And 37 people were killed and 16 injured in a bus crash on Wednesday in Malaysia near the Chin Swee Temple.
18 Missouri schoolgirls from Pembroke Hill School and a bus driver were injured in a bus crash Wednesday near Bonner Springs, Missouri.
Severe tropical storm Trami arrived in southern China on Thursday after killing 17 people in the Philippines. And at least 50 people were injured on Thursday in a bus crash in Monterey Park, California, on the I-210 near the I-605. And the Californians love to refer to their highways with an article like the 50 or the E-210, and it's an interesting little quirk of their way of referring to the highways. And California is actually nothing but highways. They finally managed to pave the entire state.
A wildfire, otherwise known as the Rim Fire, Thursday in Yosemite National Park forced evacuations.
Russia and Japan on Monday began discussing the main starting points and modality of the upcoming talks on a peace treaty.
The British warship HMS Westminster arrived in Gibraltar Monday amid tensions with Spain.
And those tensions have been going on for many, many centuries because of the fact that Spain has a real problem with the fact that the Gibraltar Peninsula is controlled by the British government, and it's actually part of Spain. I don't foresee any resolution to that conflict coming anytime soon. David Miranda, journalist Glenn Greenwald's partner in covering U.S. and British mass surveillance programs, arrived in Brazil Wednesday after being released from detainment at Heathrow Airport in London.
The Nigerian army Wednesday officially claimed that Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shakal was killed in a gunfight, although others claim Shakal is alive.
An attorney for two Norwegians imprisoned in the Congo since 2009 said on Sunday that one of the two, Cholev Moland, was found dead in his prison cell.
South African track star Oscar Pistorius was officially charged Monday with the murder of his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp at his home earlier this year. The trial is to start March 13th.
The first same-sex marriages to take place Monday in New Zealand followed the passage of the Marriage Equality Bill in April.
A Pakistani court Tuesday indicted former President Pervez Musharraf for his alleged involvement in the 2007 assassination of former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto.
6 gunshots were fired Tuesday from an AK-47 at an elementary school in Decatur, Georgia. No one was injured, and the premises were evacuated. Police arrested a 20-year-old male suspect.
Alan Rushbridger, the editor of the Guardian newspaper, revealed Tuesday that British authorities forced the newspaper to destroy computer hard drives containing material leaked by Edward Snowden.
Which was kind of an exercise in futility because that material is duplicated on hard drives all over the planet. So good luck with that, guys. Egyptian authorities Tuesday arrested Mohammed Badi, the supreme guide of the Muslim Brotherhood in Cairo. Mahmoud Ezzat, deputy leader of the Brotherhood, is temporarily the new supreme guide. Narendra
Dabholkar, a rationalist from India, was assassinated Tuesday while out walking. The anti-superstition activist and Maharistra's most vocal rationalist was shot dead by 2 youths on a motorcycle while he crossed a bridge. The rationalists is a political movement in India that I don't really understand the details about.
But for some reason or another, being rational is frowned upon by some parties in India. I don't know about you guys. A Cairo criminal court Wednesday released former President Hosni Mubarak, initiating further investigation of corruption.
British businessman Gary Bolton was sentenced Wednesday to 7 years in prison for selling fraudulent bomb detectors.
And who is he selling them to? Somebody, I hope, didn't get their butt blown to kingdom come because of his deceit and perfidy. Former U.S. Army Major Nidal Malik Hasan was convicted yesterday of multiple murder and attempted murder counts in the 2009 Fort Hood shooting. He had served as his own counsel in that affair, and the people that were supposed to sort of help him along with that said, "Let us out of here," but they wouldn't let them go, and they were very afraid that he was trying to get himself killed, which is pretty much the case. And if they're smart, they will not allow him to make a martyr of himself by executing the guy. Just throw him in a hole and leave him there.
Former U.S. Army Sergeant Robert Bales was sentenced yesterday to life in prison without parole for the killing of 16 Afghan civilians in March 2012.
2 teenage males are arrested yesterday in connection with the fatal beating of an 88-year-old World War II veteran in Spokane, Washington. One of the suspects is charged with first-degree murder and first-degree robbery.
U.S. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas said Tuesday that he wants to renounce his Canadian citizenship, fueling speculation about a presidential run in 2016.
And just north of the border, everyone in that very, very wonderful nation went, "Yay, Ted, baby! Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out." And it's interesting that he's probably putting a big fat hole in all of the birther arguments that have been going on for the past 5 or 6 years, because Ted Cruz was born in Calgary, Alberta, to an American mother, to be sure. But they've also been screeching for a few years now about the fact that Obama was born wherever, whether it was Kenya or the moon or maybe Hawaii. But she was an American woman. So that sort of blows a big fat hole in their argument if they are allowing Ted Cruz to get away with something that they didn't want Obama to get away with. But then logic and reason has never been a strong suit for the conservatives, now has it?
But it is on Friday News Dump. So, yeah.
Tunisian Islamists on Thursday agreed in principle with a transition plan to hold new elections.
Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak was released from Tora prison Thursday and transferred to a military hospital.
San Diego Mayor Bob Filner resigned on Thursday over accusations of sexual harassment from 18 women. Only 18 came forward. I mean, there's probably a line a mile long outside of the San Diego City Hall. But he said, okay, enough is enough. The resignation is effective August 30th.
Russian adventurer and priest Fyodor Konyakov Thursday announced plans to cross the Pacific Ocean in a rowboat from Chile to Australia's eastern coast.
Good luck with that, Jack. On Wednesday, the sun released a second very large coronal mass ejection, blasting billions of tons of charged particles towards Earth at 380 miles per second. The charged particles reached Earth last night. People are in no direct danger from these particles, but they could wreak a little havoc with some satellites, the power grid, and provide one hell of a light show with the aurora borealis. The sun is nearing the peak of its 11-year cycle of coronal activity, so more such reports are very likely.
As many as 50,000 stray dogs roam the streets and vacant homes of bankrupt Detroit, replacing residents, menacing humans who remain, and overwhelming the city's ability to find them homes or peaceful deaths. Dens of as many as 20 canines have been found in boarded-up homes in the community of about 700,000 that once pulsed with 1.8 million people.
It's going to take a lot of pooper scoopers to deal with that mess.
They're just plowing things under. Poverty roils the Motor City, and many dogs have been left to fend for themselves, abandoned by owners who are financially stressed or unaware of the proper care. Strays have killed pets, bitten mail carriers, and clogged the animal shelter, where more than 70% are euthanized.
A Canadian dentist wants to clone John Lennon from the DNA he plans to extract from a molar that once lived in the mouth of the murdered Beatle. Dr. Michael Zook says he purchased the tooth for $31,000 at a 2011 auction. You can't make this stuff up.
Wow, cloning John Lennon. I wonder if...
I'd love to see it, but damn.
I wonder if he could write good songs.
Good luck with that.
This is Greg Crawford. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is the Friday News Dump for Saturday, August 24th, 2013. Thanks for joining us. Join us next week.